If Paul was living in 2024, his letter to the church at Philippi might have gone something like this. Finally, beloved, whatever is false, whatever is dishonorable, whatever is unjust, whatever is corrupt, whatever is appalling, whatever is scandalous, if there is any underhandedness, and if there is anything that fills you with rage and righteous indignation, think about these things, and you will be depressed, exhausted, angry, and pessimistic. How does that sound to you? It's a pretty accurate description of the way many of us feel in America in 2024, no matter what political party we belong to. The 24-hour news cycle of fear and terror is exhausting. People seem to have shorter fuses these days, and it doesn't take much to set them off. Our ability to get along with those who have different viewpoints from ours is nearly non-existent. I could go on, but the end result is the same. It leaves us feeling depressed, exhausted, angry, and pessimistic. Thankfully, Paul said none of these things, or we'd be in serious trouble. Instead, he gives us a list of qualities we need to cultivate in our lives if we desire to have peace in our hearts in the midst of these troubled times. The goal is shalom, a sense of wholeness and well-being. And trust me, we will never attain this if we follow the list I recited at the beginning of my sermon. Instead, Paul tells us to focus on what's going right in our world instead of what's going wrong. What is the unshakable truth that we know about God and about ourselves that has stood the test of time? Do we try to live with honor and integrity, or do we join the death spiral of hidden agendas and dirty deeds done in the dark? How's that for alliteration? Are we people with a deep sense of justice for the poor, the marginalized, the voiceless, or are we just in it for ourselves? Are our intentions toward others pure, or are we nice to people in order to get what we want from them? Do we engage in activities that are pleasing to all five of our senses, or do we do everything because we think we have to? Do we commend the virtues of those around us, or are we quick to point out their faults and failures? Do we strive for excellence in all things, or do we just do enough in order to get by? Do we focus on news stories that are worthy of praise, or do we obsess over every scandalous detail that catches our attention? We always have a choice regarding which of these paths we will travel in life. Do you hear me, church? And most of us vacillate between the two. But Paul tells us that if we can somehow manage to take the higher road, the God of peace will walk with us. In a sense, this is the meaning of Thanksgiving. It's an opportunity for us to intentionally cultivate these kinds of qualities in our minds and spirits. It's a chance to practice gratitude and appreciation for the blessings we have in our lives. It's an opportunity to feast and enjoy the company of those who are near and dear to our hearts. Paul tells us to rejoice always and let our gentleness be known to everyone. And this sounds like a good strategy as we sit down at the Thanksgiving table. Perhaps we can focus on what's going right in our lives and in the lives of those we love. Perhaps we can be gentle with those who have experienced loss and heartache this year. Perhaps we can even be gentle with those we love who stir the political stew in order to get a rise out of others. And in the midst of all these lofty goals, Paul says three magic words: do not worry. In fact, he says, do not worry about anything, but instead take the time to connect with God, to center ourselves and breathe deeply, to be people of prayer and thanksgiving. In some ways, this might be the most difficult quality to cultivate in our lives. Do not worry? Yeah, right. I'm okay with the excellence and worthy of praise stuff, but Paul is setting a pretty high bar for us here. I don't think I can pull it off. Let's be honest, we are worriers. I think it's some DNA left over from our prehistoric ancestors who had to worry all the time that they might become lunch for a T-Rex or other carnivorous beast. But dinosaurs are extinct now, but unfortunately the worry gene remains. I don't think Paul is asking us to put on rose-colored glasses and convince ourselves that everything is hunky-dory. I think he's asking us to trust that God has our backs and our front sides and everything in between. And if God is for us, who or what can possibly be against us? We might be able to ignore Paul if he was the only biblical author to tell us, do not worry. But Jesus said the same thing in our gospel lesson for today. In fact, he tells us do not worry multiple times to make sure we heard what was being said. Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Do not worry saying, what will we eat or what will we wear? Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. I don't know how you're feeling this Thanksgiving, but I have hit the worry button far too many times in the past year. I've not done a great job in cultivating Paul's list of qualities in my life. I've ignored Jesus' advice and worried about the past, the present, and the future. How about you? Are you in the same boat? I figure some of you are, but at least we're not alone. And the reason why we come here every week is to be reminded that we do not have to worry because God is faithful to us, even when we are not faithful to ourselves or to others. God is merciful to us, even when we have not shown mercy to others. God is gracious to us, even when we have been hostile to others and seen them as our enemy. So let's breathe a sigh of relief. Whew, as we absorb the truth about our faithfulness, our faithful, merciful, and gracious God. And when we do this, we might just be able to achieve the do not worry goal. We can let our defenses down and rest a bit because we do not have to be strong all the time. Do you hear me? We do not have to be strong all the time. The good news of the gospel is that when we are weak, then we are strong. When we let God do the heavy lifting, we create space in our lives to focus on things that are excellent and worthy of praise. When we backslide into the spin cycle of fear, sadness, anger, and despair, this same God works behind the scenes to mend that which is broken and create new life in the dead places of our lives. This is the God who, in the final chapter of Revelation, promises to make all things new. And this is why we do not have to worry. Everything, and I mean everything, is in God's capable hands. The microcosm and the cosmos, the nations and the individuals who live in those nations, people who are just like us and people who are not like us at all. My hope for all of us this Thanksgiving is that we can shift our focus to the kind of things that are on Paul's list. Our sense of happiness and well-being depend on it. Amen.